My name is Dylan Holt, and I'm 41 years old. The night my brother collapsed from his heart, I called my wife, a woman 12 minutes from the hospital, and she said, "That's not my problem." I spent my whole life believing marriage meant pulling the weight together. My brother nearly died on a stranger's front lawn, and the next morning, I learned what the word shared really meant. By that night, my wife had called me 50 times. Before I take you back there, take a second to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? Now, let me take you back to that Tuesday night in March, the night everything I trusted came apart, and the night I stopped asking permission to protect my own family. I was 2 hours out, running the night pour on a bridge job past Carlton. Concrete doesn't wait, so I didn't either. My phone lit up at 11:40. Marcus. He didn't say hello. He just breathed wrong. Short, scraping pulls, like the air had teeth. Dylan. A pause. Something's wrong. My chest. 3 weeks. He was 3 weeks out from open heart surgery. The surgeon's words came back fast. Any pressure, any pain, you move. Marcus, listen to me. You call 911, then you sit down. I can't. His voice broke. I can't get to the door. I was already walking to my truck, keys out, heart slamming. Brenda was home, 12 minutes from County General. I called her before I even hit the highway. She answered on the fourth ring, annoyed. It's almost midnight. Brenda, Marcus is in trouble. His chest. You have to drive him. Now. A long silence. I could hear the TV behind her. Dylan, I have plans tomorrow. I'm not dressed. Then flatter, colder. That's not my problem. I thought I misheard. He's dying. 12 minutes. Please. Call an ambulance like everyone else. The line went dead. I called back. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. My hands were shaking on the wheel. 90 miles an hour past dark fields. And my own wife had hung up on a man fighting to breathe. I called Marcus. No answer. I called the neighbor. No answer. I called Brenda one more time, and this time, it didn't even ring. She'd turned the phone off. Somewhere on that highway, doing 90 with the heater roaring and my brother's voicemail repeating in my skull, something inside me went very quiet. Not loud, quiet. I didn't know yet who'd reached him. I didn't know if he was alive. I just knew I'd be 2 hours too late to find out. Karen Voss is 61 and sleeps with her window cracked, even in March. She heard it, not a scream. She told me later, but a sound. A man's voice trying to call out and failing. She found Marcus on our front step, half collapsed against the door he never managed to open. She didn't ask questions. She got him into her Buick and drove like she was 20 again. I know all this because Karen called me at 12:10, breathless, already pulling into the ER bay. "I've got your brother, honey. We're at County. They're taking him now." I cried then. First time in years. Driving and crying and thanking a woman I'd waved to maybe 10 times. I made it at 1:50 in the morning. Fluorescent lights, that hospital smell, my work boots loud on the tile. A doctor in scrubs met me near the desk. "Are you family?" "His brother?" She didn't soften it. 10 more minutes, and we'd have lost him. The neighbor saved his life. The neighbor, not his sister-in-law, a stranger. I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Did anyone else come? From my house? The doctor checked her notes, shook her head. Just the woman who brought him. I stood in that hallway and did the math no man wants to do. Brenda had been home the whole time, 12 minutes away, warm, dressed enough, with 2 cars in the driveway. She hadn't been stuck. She hadn't been helpless. She'd chosen. I sat by Marcus until the sun came up, watching the monitor prove he was still here. And somewhere in that long, beeping silence, I decided I'd go home and look my wife in the eye. I just didn't know yet what I'd find when I opened our accounts. Let me tell you about my family, because you can't understand that night without it. I married Brenda 9 years ago. She was sharp, organized, the kind of person who color codes everything. Early on, she took over our money. "You build things, Dylan. Let me handle the paperwork." It made sense. I worked 60-hour weeks. She was good with numbers, so I handed it over. The bills, the accounts, all of it. For years, I never looked. That was my mistake. and I own it. Trusting your wife shouldn't be a mistake. But I gave her the keys and stopped checking the locks. Marcus is my younger brother. Our mother raised us alone, then she got sick, and I half raised him after. When her heart finally gave out, I made her a promise at the bedside. Take care of your brother. I said yes. I meant it. Brenda never warmed to him. She called him your brother, the way you'd say your debt. When his heart trouble started, she had a word for it. A burden. He's a grown man, Dylan, she'd say. Why is his health our problem? I told myself she was just stressed. Couples say things. That morning at the hospital, Marcus woke up gray and small in the bed. He found my hand. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry I'm always the problem. I told him he wasn't. I told him to rest. But driving home that morning, exhausted, I kept circling one thought I couldn't shake. There was an account I'd set up, one Brenda managed with everything else, the one meant only for Marcus and his treatment. I hadn't looked at it in a long time. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was wrong. Here's what you have to understand about that account and about me. When our mother was dying, she didn't have much. A small house, a life insurance policy, and a savings she'd scraped together $1 at a time for 30 years. She left it to the two of us, her exact words, written in her will, for my sons, and for whatever the younger one needs. She knew Marcus's heart was weak. She'd known since he was a boy. That money was her last act of love, a cushion for the day his body turned on him. So I set up a separate account. I called it the Smith Fund, after her maiden name. Every dollar of the inheritance went in. I added to it myself when I could. It was the one thing in my life I treated as sacred. That fund was the promise. As long as it existed, I'd kept my word to her. Marcus didn't even know the full size of it. He'd have refused. He hated being a cost to anybody. But it meant his surgery got done at the best hospital in the state. It meant his recovery had a floor under it. That's the stake. Not money. A promise to a dead woman and a living brother's safety. So that morning, when I sat down at the kitchen table with my coffee going cold, and I finally logged into the bank, really logged in for the first time in years, my hands were steady. I expected to see that fund sitting there, untouched. A small, sacred number. I pulled up the Smith Fund balance. I read it twice. Then I set the coffee down very slowly, because the number on that screen was almost zero. Almost zero. Where there should have been a small fortune, my mother's life, my brother's safety, there was a balance that wouldn't cover a month of medication. I sat there cold, not angry yet. Cold, like the highway feeling from the night before. I clicked into the transaction history. My eyes went down the list, and the pattern came up to meet me. Transfers, dozens of them, spread out over more than a year, never large enough to scream, always large enough to bleed. 2,000 here, 3,500 there, steady, patient, and every one of them landed in the same place, a name I'd never seen on our paperwork. Smith Holdings, LLC. I didn't know any company by that name. I knew Brenda's family ran in real estate circles. Her brother was always chasing some deal. But this account wasn't ours. This wasn't bills or groceries. This was my mother's money, walking out the door in quiet monthly steps, into a business with a stranger's name. I picked up the phone and called the bank. I gave them the fund number, told them I needed to understand the transfers. The woman on the line was kind, careful. She pulled the records. Sir, she said slowly, I'm seeing the transfers you mentioned, but I have to tell you, these were all authorized. Authorized by who? A pause, the sound of typing. By the other account holder. The transfers were initiated and approved on her end. Everything's in order on our records. The other account holder, Brenda. For more than a year, while I worked nights and trusted her with everything, my wife had been carrying my mother's last gift out of the house and feeding it to a company I'd never heard of. I needed to hear her say it. Brenda came home at noon, bags from the mall on her arm, like the night before had never happened. You look terrible, she said. Marcus almost died. He's fine, isn't he? She set the bags down. I told you, ambulance. That's what they're for. I kept my voice level. I'd practiced it on the drive home. I was looking at the accounts this morning. Something flickered across her face. Fast, then gone. The Smith Fund, I said. It's empty. She turned toward the kitchen, busying her hands. Money sits there doing nothing, Dylan. I put it to work. That was Mom's money, for Marcus, and it was just rotting in savings. She faced me, chin up, already in the role. Somebody in this marriage has to think about our future, about my family too. Your family? You mean Smith Holdings? The flicker again. It's an investment. You'll thank me. You moved my mother's inheritance into your brother's company without telling me. Your brother's medical bills were draining us. Her voice rose, righteous now, the victim mask sliding on. His surgery, his recovery, his pills. Someone had to be practical. I was protecting us. From my dying brother. Don't make me the bad guy. She crossed her arms. I kept this house running while you played hero for Marcus. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd married. The keys I'd handed over. Then she said the things she shouldn't have. Besides, she added, almost casual, turning away, half of that was always going to be mine anyway. Mine anyway. She believed it. She truly believed my mother's money belonged to her. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded slowly, and I went to find an old steel box in the back of the closet. The box was where I'd left it years ago, beneath winter blankets, behind shoe boxes, the kind of place you forget on purpose. Inside was my mother's will, the real one, notarized, witnessed, official. I sat on the bedroom floor and read it for the first time in 9 years. Her language was plain, but it was clear. The savings, the insurance, the proceeds from her house, left to her 2 sons, specifically by name, and one line I'd forgotten, written in a lawyer's careful hand. These funds are the separate property of my sons and are not to be commingled with marital assets. Separate property, not marital, not Brenda's, not mine anyway. My mother had seen something in Brenda I'd been too loyal to see myself. She'd put a wall around that money on purpose. From the grave, she was still protecting her boys. I held that paper for a long time. The house was quiet. Down the hall, I could hear Brenda on the phone, her voice low and quick, the way it got when she didn't want me to hear. I had 2 things now. This will, in my hands, and a year of bank records on my laptop, every transfer with a date and a destination. 2 facts. Patient, documented, true. I didn't have a plan yet. I just knew I'd never hand the keys to anyone again. My phone buzzed. A text from Brenda from the next room, like we were strangers in our own house. Mom and Dad's anniversary party is Saturday. The whole family will be there. Then a second text, 3 dots, then, you'll behave yourself, won't you? I looked at that word. Behave. I set the phone down on top of my mother's will, and for the first time in months, I almost smiled. Monday morning, I took a personal day and drove to the bank in person. I brought the will. I brought a printout of every transfer. The branch manager was a steady man named Foster. He read my mother's will, then read the line about separate property twice, the way I had. This is clear, he said. Inheritance kept separate, documented as separate property. Legally, that's yours and your brother's. It was never marital money. Even though it sat in an account she could access, commingling it doesn't erase its character. Not with a will this specific. He set the paper down. She had the authorization as a joint holder. That's a different question from whether she had the right. Then he pulled up Smith Holdings on his own screen, the public filing. You said you'd never heard of this company. He turned the monitor toward me. Your wife is listed as a co-owner, alongside, he squinted, of Vincent Smith, her brother, Vincent. So it wasn't an investment she'd made on our behalf. She'd put my mother's money into a company she co-owned with her own brother. She was on both ends of the transfer, taking from one hand, receiving with the other. I sat very still. Mr. Holt, Foster said gently, you have options here, but I'd suggest you understand the full picture before you act. I think I'm starting to. This wasn't a panicked wife making a bad call in a hard year. This was a structure, a plan, built slow, hidden well, designed to look like prudence. I thanked him and walked out into the parking lot, the will folded in my jacket like a held breath. That was the moment it stopped being heartbreak. That was the moment I understood I wasn't dealing with a mistake. I was dealing with a plan. I drove to the hospital and sat with Marcus. He was stronger that day, color back in his face, complaining about the food. A good sign. I didn't tell him. Not yet. He'd have blamed himself, and he'd already apologized for existing twice that week. But sitting there, watching the monitor draw its steady green line, the line that almost flattened because a stranger got to him first, something settled in me, calm and final. For 9 years, I'd kept the peace by keeping quiet. Brenda made a scene. I went silent. She spent. I absorbed. She insulted my brother. I told myself she was tired. I'd called it being the bigger man. It wasn't. It was permission. Every time I swallowed it, I told her the same thing, that there'd be no cost, that she could take and take. I wasn't going to yell. Yelling was what she wanted, so she could play wounded. I wasn't going to break anything. I was going to do something far quieter and far harder for her to spin. I was going to put the locks back on the doors I'd left open. In the parking garage, I made one call, the bank. I scheduled an appointment for the next morning to close the joint account and move the separate property, what was left of it, into an account in my name alone. It was legal. It was clean. It was mine to do. I sat in my truck a while after I hung up. I thought about my mother and the wall she'd built that I'd nearly let crumble. I'm done asking for permission to protect my own family, I said out loud to no one. Then I went back inside to sit with my brother, and I let myself feel almost free. Marcus was discharged on Thursday. The doctors wanted him watched, so he came to stay with us. Our spare room, doctor's orders, no argument. Brenda made her feelings clear without a single direct word. She set his place at the far end of the table. She sighed at his pill organizer on the counter. She asked, sweetly, in front of him, "How long do you think you'll need to stay, Marcus?" He shrank a little smaller each time. "I can find somewhere," he told me that night. Quiet. "I don't want to be in her way. You're my brother. You're not going anywhere." He looked at his hands. Then he said something that stopped me. "Dylan, the night it happened," he swallowed. "Before you called, I heard her, on the phone, in the kitchen." "Heard her say what?" Not about me. About a deal. A project." He frowned, reaching for it. She kept saying, "The funding's there. It's handled. Tell Vincent to move." I didn't think anything of it. I was just trying to breathe. "The funding's there. Tell Vincent to move." While my brother was dying on the floor of my house, my wife was on the phone, reassuring her own brother the money was good. I kept my face calm for Marcus. Told him to rest. Told him it was nothing. But that night I sat in the dark living room a long time. She hadn't just refused to help him. She'd been mid-sentence, closing a deal with my mother's money when his call for help came in. And she'd chosen the deal. I didn't sleep. I just listened to the house, and to Brenda's even breathing down the hall. And I thought about how many things a person can hide in plain sight. The next morning I called the lawyer who'd handled my mother's estate, old man named Pruitt, semi-retired now. But he remembered her, remembered the will. "Sharp woman, your mother," he said. "She was very particular about that separate property clause. Insisted on it. Did she ever say why?" A dry chuckle. She said, and I'm quoting, "I want a wall around this that no in-law can climb." I closed my eyes. She'd known. She'd seen Brenda coming from miles off. Then Pruitt said the thing that changed the shape of everything. "Funny you should call, actually. Someone reached out to my office about that fund, maybe 10, 11 months back." My grip tightened. "Who?" "A woman. Said she was family. Wanted to know how to, her word, release the funds. Whether a spouse could access the inheritance directly." He paused. I told her no. The clause is ironclad. She'd need your signature and your brother's. And even then, it's complicated. She hung up fairly quick. 11 months ago. Before Marcus's heart failed, before the surgery, before any of it. She hadn't started skimming because the medical bills scared her. She'd been trying to get at that money long before Marcus ever got sick. The bills were just the excuse she found later, the cover story. She'd tried the front door, the lawyer, and been turned away. So she'd gone around back, through the joint account, taking it in pieces small enough to miss. "Mr. Holt?" Pruitt said. "You still there?" "I'm here. Thank you." I hung up and stood in the kitchen with the morning light coming in clean and ordinary. She'd been planning this before there was even a crisis to blame it on. And now I had the dates. I had the will. I had Pruitt, who remembered the call. I had everything I needed. I just had to choose the room. Brenda must have sensed the ground shifting because she moved first, not at me, but around me. The calls started reaching my family and hers. I heard it secondhand at first. My cousin texted, careful, everything okay with you and Brenda? Heard things were rough. Then my aunt called, gentle, fishing. Brenda says you've been distant, obsessed with money lately, since Marcus moved in. That was the story. I was the husband who'd gone cold, fixated on bank accounts, who'd let his brother move in and shut his wife out. She was building it carefully, the way she built everything, a foundation of sympathy poured slow. That evening, I overheard her on the phone with her mother, not even hiding it. He chose his brother over his marriage, she said, voice thick with practiced hurt. What was I supposed to do, Mom? He emptied accounts behind my back. I'm scared, honestly. Emptied accounts. She was already rehearsing the accusation she'd throw at me. The exact thing she'd done. Turned inside out and aimed my way. She hung up and saw me standing there. She didn't even blink. People should know what's really going on, she said. And what's really going on, Brenda? That my husband's losing it. A thin smile. Everyone's worried about you. I understood then what Saturday was. The anniversary party, both families, 30-odd people, wine, speeches. She wasn't inviting me to celebrate her parents. She was setting a stage. She'd stand up in front of everyone who mattered to us, play the frightened wife, and corner me with a story I couldn't easily fight in a crowded room. Public pressure, her favorite tool. She wanted an audience. I looked at her calm, certain face, and I made a decision I kept entirely to myself. If she wanted an audience, I'd make sure they heard everything. By Friday, her story had done its work. Brenda's mother, Diane, called me directly. Cool. Clipped. We're all very concerned, Dylan. Brenda's a wreck. Whatever's going on with the money, you two need to sort it privately, not drag it out. Did Brenda tell you where the money went, Diane? A pause. She said you've been moving things around, hiding accounts, so even the truth was being run backward. I was the one hiding accounts. I felt it then, the isolation closing in. The story had legs because Brenda had told it first, and a story told first is a story half believed. I almost called the whole thing off, almost decided to handle it quietly with the lawyers, away from the family, let them think what they'd think. Then Raymond called. Brenda's father, 68, old-fashioned, a man who built a contracting business with his hands and never once raised his voice that I'd seen. He'd always treated me square. Dylan. His voice was heavy. I don't know the whole of it. I don't want to. But I want to ask you something, man to man. Ask me. Are you a thief? The question landed clean. No spin in it. Just a father trying to find true north. No, Ray, I'm not. A long breath on the line. I've always thought of you as a son. You know that. Then, quieter, almost pained. Don't make me choose between you and my girl. Don't put me in that room Saturday and make me choose. He hung up before I could answer. I stood there holding the phone, and I understood the real weight of what was coming. Raymond was a good man, an honest one. He just didn't know yet that the choice wasn't his to avoid. It had already been made by his daughter, 11 months ago, in a lawyer's office. Let me pause here for a second and step out of the story. If you've ever been the one holding a family together, paying the bills, keeping the peace, and then been painted as the villain for it, do me a favor and comment one word, scene. Because I felt invisible in my own house for years, and I know I'm not the only one. And if you want to know exactly what I laid on that table Saturday, hit subscribe. Now, back to that week. What I didn't know was that Raymond had started asking his own questions. He told me all this later, but it belongs here. After he hung up with me, he couldn't sleep. Something in Brenda's story hadn't sat right. Too clean. Too rehearsed. He'd raised her. He knew her tells. So he did what a builder does. He checked the foundation. He called Vincent, his own son, to ask about the family real estate project everyone kept mentioning. Smith Holdings. The thing Brenda kept calling our future. Vincent was cagey. Raymond pressed. Where's the capital coming from, Vince? You boys don't have that kind of money. Brenda's handling the funding, Vincent said. She's got it covered. Don't worry about it. Handling it how? Dad, it's handled. Leave it. But Raymond didn't leave it. He'd signed enough contracts to know when a number doesn't have a clean source. He pulled the partnership paperwork Vincent had once proudly shown him. There it was. Smith Holdings, LLC. 2 owners, Vincent and Brenda. His daughter wasn't just cheering the project on from the sidelines. She was a partner, half owner, and she was, by her own words, the one bringing the money. Money she didn't have. Money that, as far as Raymond knew, could only have come from one household, hers and Dylan's. He sat with that all of Friday night, a father doing arithmetic he didn't want to do. He didn't call me back. He didn't call Brenda. He just decided, quietly, that on Saturday he'd listen. Really listen. To both of them. I didn't know any of this was happening. I thought I was walking into that party alone, the only one holding the truth. But the truth had already started leaking through the one crack Brenda never thought to seal. Her own father. Saturday morning, before the party, I gave Brenda one last chance. I owed myself that much, to know I'd offered the quiet door before I opened the loud one. She was at the mirror, putting on earrings, dressed for her parents' celebration. Brenda, we can fix this today. Privately. Fix what? Not even turning. Put the money back. What's left of it. Tell your father the truth before the party. I won't say a word to anyone. We handle it between us. Now she turned, and she laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. Put it back. Dylan, it's invested. It's working. You want me to blow up Vincent's whole project over your dead mother's savings account? That savings account was my brother's life. Your brother's fine. She fixed the second earring. And by the way, if you embarrass me today, I'll tell every person in that room exactly what kind of man hides money from his wife and abandons her for his sibling. There it was, fully formed. The threat, the story, loaded and aimed. I gave you a chance to do this quietly, I said. You said no. I said, grow up. I nodded. I didn't argue. I'd learned that arguing was the oxygen she breathed. I drove to the bank when it opened at 9. Foster was waiting. I'd called ahead. In 20 quiet minutes, I closed the joint account. I moved my mother's separate property and the battered remains of the Smith Fund into an account in my name alone. It was legal. It was clean. It was 9 years overdue. I signed the last form, shook Foster's hand, and folded the receipts into my jacket beside the will. Then I drove to a celebration where my wife planned to destroy me. She just didn't know I'd already taken the only weapon she had. The call started at 11:40 a.m. I was getting dressed for the party when my phone lit up. Brenda. I let it ring out. It rang again and again. She'd tried to move money that morning. I found this out later. Tried to send Vincent a payment she'd promised for the project. The transfer bounced. Account closed. The card declined at the gas station. Closed. That's when she understood. The phone buzzed like something alive. I watched the count climb. 5 missed calls. Then 10. Then the text came in a flood. Where is the money? Dylan answered the phone now. You can't do this, it's illegal. I'll call the police. Then, 20 minutes later, the tone shifted, the way it always did when force failed her. Dylan, please. Please call me. We can talk. I committed to Vincent. I need that transfer. Please. I'm begging you. Don't do this to me. 50 calls. I counted them later, scrolling the log. 50. Between 11:40 and 1 p.m. From the woman who, 3 weeks earlier, couldn't pick up the phone twice for a dying man. For 9 years, I jumped every time she called, smoothed every problem, explained myself, apologized, made it right. I sat on the edge of the bed in my good shirt and watched the phone ring itself out, and I felt no urge, none, to answer. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't punishing her. I just finally understood all the way down that I didn't owe her an explanation. The silence in that room was the most honest thing I'd felt in years. When the calls finally stopped, I knew it wasn't because she'd given up. It was because she'd realized where she'd see me next. At her parents' house. In front of everyone. The last text came at 12:55. Fine. You want to do this in front of my family? See you there. You'll regret it. She'd flipped it again. If she couldn't get the money back, she'd burn me down publicly and take the sympathy as her prize. The crowd was her last asset. I texted back one line, the first thing I'd sent all day. I'll be there at 2. Then I put the phone in my pocket and got my jacket. Inside the breast pocket, my mother's will, the bank receipts, and a single printed page of transfer dates with Smith Holdings highlighted in yellow. Marcus found me at the door. He was steadier now, walking on his own. You're going to the party? With her? I am. Dylan. She'll tear into you in there. He looked scared for me. In front of everyone, I put my hand on his shoulder. Marcus, do you trust me? With my life, obviously. Then come with me, and when I ask you to tell them what happened that night, just tell the truth. Plain. No anger. He searched my face, and whatever he saw there, he stopped arguing. We drove to the Castellano house in silence, the will riding in my jacket like a held breath. I thought about Brenda standing up to accuse me. I thought about Raymond's voice on the phone. Don't make me choose. I thought about my mother, particular about her wall. She wanted an audience. She was about to get one. I just wasn't the man she'd be performing for anymore. We pulled up to a house already full of cars, lights spilling from the windows, the sound of 30 people celebrating 40 years of marriage. I parked, I took a breath, and I walked in carrying the only thing in that house that was true. The Castellano house was the kind of place that announces itself. Big colonial on a corner lot, 2 acres, the lawn cut into stripes. Tonight, it glowed. String lights in the backyard, a tent, a long table, a banner over the patio that read 40 years, Raymond and Diane. And on an easel near the bar, a second sign, glossy, professional, the kind you print to make something feel real before it is. Smith Holdings, groundbreaking this summer, a rendering of condos that didn't exist yet. Vincent had put it up like a trophy. I almost laughed. The project funded by my mother's grave was on display next to the anniversary cake. 30-some people. Brenda's relatives, mine, neighbors. Karen Voss was there too. She and Diane went to the same church, and she found me first, squeezing my arm. How's our boy doing? Marcus beside me smiled at her like she was an angel. She was. Brenda spotted me across the yard. She didn't rush over. She lifted her wine, gave me a look I'd never seen aimed at me before. Cold, ready, almost hungry, and turned back to her circle of relatives, playing the brave wife, holding it together. Raymond caught my eye from near the grill. He didn't smile. He just nodded once, slow, and looked away. I couldn't read it. Diane gave a short toast. People clapped. The evening rolled along, warm and ordinary, and I waited, the will heavy in my jacket. At 7:45, with the light going gold, Brenda set down her glass and picked up a fork. She tapped it against crystal, that bright, ringing sound that pulls every eye. The yard quieted. Before we cut the cake, she said, her voice carrying clear and steady, there's something my family needs to know about my husband. 30 faces turned, some toward Brenda, some toward me. A few wine glasses froze halfway to lips. Brenda let the silence stretch. She was good at that. Then pressed a hand to her chest and let her eyes shine. I'm sorry to do this here. I am. But I can't keep pretending. A murmur moved through the yard. 3 weeks ago, my husband's brother had an emergency, and ever since, Dylan has changed. Her voice wavered perfectly. He moved Marcus into our home. He stopped talking to me. And this morning, she let it crack. This morning, I found out he closed our accounts, emptied them, locked me out of our own money, without one word. Gasps. An aunt's hand flew to her mouth. Someone said, "Oh, Brenda, I don't even know how I'll pay our bills." A tear, right on cue. I have stood by this man for 9 years, and he's left me with nothing, for his brother's sake. She turned to me, and now her voice hardened, the trap snapping shut in front of everyone. So go on, Dylan. In front of my family, explain yourself, tell them why you emptied our accounts. It was masterful, I'll give her that. Every word engineered. Husband hides money. Husband abandons wife for sibling. Husband humiliates her publicly. She'd made herself the victim and handed me the role of the villain, gift-wrapped, in front of everyone we knew. I felt the weight of 30 stares. Diane's eyes wet with sympathy for her daughter. Cousins shaking their heads at me. Even Karen looked uncertain. Marcus, beside me, went rigid. I touched his arm. Wait, I didn't rush. I set my own glass down on the table, slow and quiet. Then I reached into my jacket. All right, I said. Let me explain. I didn't raise my voice. The whole yard had gone silent enough that I didn't need to. Brenda's right about one thing. This morning, I closed an account. Let me tell you what was in it. I unfolded my mother's will and held it up. My mother died 9 years ago. She left her savings to me and my brother. In her will, in plain language, she wrote that this money was our separate property, never to be mixed with marriage money. She built a wall around it on purpose. I let that sit. I kept it in a fund for one reason, my brother's heart, so that when it failed, and we always knew it would, he'd have the surgery and the care to survive. That's my mother's money, not our money. Mine and Marcus's. I lifted the second page, the highlighted one, and turned slowly so the whole yard could see the yellow rose. For over a year, that fund was drained, a few thousand at a time. Quiet transfers every month, all going to the same place. I looked at the easel. Everyone followed my eyes to the glossy sign. Smith Holdings. The project we're celebrating beside the cake tonight. It was built with my dying brother's medical fund. The silence changed. You could feel it change. From sympathy for Brenda to something colder, something turning. The night Marcus collapsed, I said, even and clear, I called my wife to drive him 12 minutes to the hospital. She told me it wasn't her problem. A neighbor saved his life instead. I nodded toward Karen, who had gone pale. That neighbor. Right there. I folded the papers. I didn't take anything that was hers. I just stopped letting someone take from a dying man. For a long moment, nobody breathed. Then a chair scraped hard against the patio stone. Raymond stood up, his face gray as ash, staring not at me, but at his daughter. Brenda. Raymond's voice was low, but it carried to every corner of that silent yard. The money for Vincent's project. Where did it come from? Brenda's mask slipped for the first time. Dad, this isn't... Where did it come from? Not louder, heavier. It was an investment. Family money. Dylan's exaggerating. It was his mother's. Raymond pointed at the easel without looking at it. That sign. You built it with a dead woman's money meant for a sick man. You don't understand the situation. I understand it fine. He turned to Vincent, who'd gone still by the bar. Did you know where your funding came from? Vincent's mouth opened, closed. Brenda said it was handled. She said it was hers to give. I didn't ask. You didn't ask. Raymond's jaw tightened. 40 years, I've put my name on honest work, and my own children took from a man fighting for his life. I raised you better than that, Brenda. His voice finally broke, just slightly. I raised you better than to steal from a dying man and call it being practical. Diane had both hands over her mouth. The aunts who'd gasped for Brenda now stared at the grass. Brenda looked around the yard for an ally and found none, so she did the only thing left in her toolbox. She reached for the victim role one more time. I'm the one being attacked here, she said, voice rising, eyes filling. All of you, ganging up. He's turned my own family against me. But it didn't land. Not this time. The yard had seen the will, seen the sign, heard her own father. The performance had nowhere to go. The crowd that was hers 2 minutes ago had quietly turned its back. And then a quiet voice spoke up from beside me. Marcus. Marcus stepped forward. He was still thin from the surgery, one hand resting on the table for balance. The yard turned to him, and you could see people remember. That's the brother, the sick one. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have Brenda's polish. He just spoke plain, the way I'd asked him to. I almost died 3 weeks ago, he said, on Dylan's front step. I couldn't get the door open. He took a breath that cost him something. I called my brother. He was 2 hours away. He called Brenda. She was home, 12 minutes from the hospital. He looked at her, no anger in it, only a terrible honesty. I heard her say no. I heard her say it wasn't her problem. Then she hung up. Diane made a small broken sound. The neighbor I'd met twice found me and drove me. Marcus went on. The doctor said 10 more minutes and I'd be gone. He swallowed. I never wanted to come between anyone. I never wanted to be a cost to this family. His voice caught. I just wanted to live. Nobody moved. Somewhere a glass was set down very gently, like the sound might break something. Karen was crying. So was Diane. Even Vincent stared at the ground. Brenda stood alone in the center of her parents' yard, in front of the banner celebrating 40 years of marriage, beside a sign built on stolen money, and she had no audience left to perform for. She looked at me. For 1 second, the mask was entirely gone, and there was just fear underneath. Then she set her jaw, grabbed her purse off the chair, and walked out through the side gate. The gate clicked shut behind her. Nobody followed. Not one person. The fallout was quick, the way these things are once the ground gives way. Smith Holdings didn't survive the month. The project ran on promised money, Brenda's promised money, and when the account closed, the funding she had guaranteed Vincent simply vanished. They had already put a deposit on the land. They lost it. The seller kept the earnest money and walked. Vincent had to call the contractors and tell them there was no project. Word travels in a small town. The Smith name, which Raymond had spent 40 years keeping clean, took a hit it wouldn't shake off soon. The glossy sign came down off the easel. I heard Diane threw it in the trash herself. Brenda didn't come home that night, or the next. She stayed with a friend, then with Vincent, working the phones, trying to spin the story to anyone who'd still pick up. Fewer and fewer did. 2 days after the party, she finally texted me. Not 50 times now. Just once. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. I hope you're happy. I looked at it a long while. The old Dylan would have apologized, would have softened it, smoothed it, taken the blame to keep the peace. I typed back one line. You humiliated yourself the night you let my brother die on the floor. I just stopped covering for it. Then I put the phone down and went to check on Marcus, who was at the kitchen table, color in his face, sorting his pills for the week. Alive, and home, and safe. The fund was secure. The promise to my mother was kept. And for the first time in 9 years, the quiet in my house wasn't the quiet of swallowing something. It was just quiet. It was peace. Raymond came to see me on a Sunday, about a week later. He stood on my porch with his hat in his hands, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Got a minute, Dylan? We sat on the steps. For a while, he didn't say anything. Then, I called you a thief on the phone. Before the party. He stared at the yard. I want you to know I'm ashamed of that. You didn't know, Ray. I should have known. She's my daughter. I raised her. He turned the hat in his hands. A man spends his whole life building something honest. And then, he didn't finish. I don't need an apology, Ray, I said. I really don't. I just needed the truth to sit on the table where everyone could see it. It's there now. That's all I wanted. He nodded slowly. Then he looked at me with something steadier. How's your brother? The fund, he's covered? For the long haul? He's covered. It's locked down tight now. Just his and mine, the way Mom wanted. Good. Raymond's jaw worked. If he ever needs more, care, anything, you come to me. I mean that. I owe that boy. My family owes him. It was a real offer from a real man, and I took it the way it was meant. Then he told me the last piece. He'd sat Brenda down, told her she was out of the family's finances, off any accounts, no more access to anything with the Smith name on it. He'd done it himself, plainly, the way he did everything. Trust is a thing you earn back over years, he said, standing to go. If she ever does. That's on her now. He put his hat on and walked to his truck. A father walking home lighter and heavier at once. Brenda made one last move because people like her always have one more card. I got a letter from a lawyer she'd hired. It claimed I'd wrongfully taken marital assets. It demanded half of the closed account. It used a lot of heavy words. I brought it to Foster's old colleague, an estate attorney, and laid out the will, the separate property clause, the dates. She read it and almost smiled. This is the cleanest separate property case I've seen in years. Your mother wrote that clause like she had a lawyer in the family. Brenda's claim goes nowhere. She was right. Brenda's own lawyer must have told her the same because 2 weeks later, the demand quietly evaporated. There was nothing to take. There never had been. The wall my mother built held. I saw Brenda once during all this. picking up the last of her things from the house. We stood in the kitchen where she'd once told her brother the funding was handled, while mine fought to breathe. She looked smaller, tired, the certainty gone out of her. "I don't have anywhere to go, really," she said, not quite to me. "Vincent's furious. My dad won't look at me. The deal's dead." A short, brittle laugh. I was just trying to build something. And for a second, just one, I saw the fear underneath. Not a villain, a person who'd gambled everything on taking what wasn't hers and lost the whole table. I felt something I didn't expect. Not triumph, not even anger anymore. Just a quiet, settled stillness. The kind you feel when a long fight is finally, truly over. "You made these choices, Brenda," I said, gently. No cruelty in it. Every one of them. She didn't argue. She picked up her box and left. I didn't watch her go. I filed for separation that month. The lawyer said the divorce would be straightforward. Separate property stays separate, and there wasn't much else to fight over. Brenda didn't contest it. There was nothing left to win. I won't pretend it didn't ache. 9 years is 9 years. There were good ones in there, somewhere near the start. Before I handed over the keys, I grieved those. A man's allowed to grieve the marriage he thought he had, even when he's relieved the real one is ending. But mostly I watched my brother get well. Marcus grew stronger every week. The cardiologist was pleased, heart healing clean, numbers good, recovery on track. He started cooking again, badly, filling the house with the smoke and laughter. He got a part-time job at the hardware store he liked. He stopped apologizing for taking up space. One evening, he stood at the stove, ruining an omelet, and said, "You know, I never thanked you. For that night, for all of it. You don't have to." "I do." He didn't turn around. "You kept your promise to Mom, even when it cost you your marriage. I'll never forget that." I didn't trust my voice, so I just gripped his shoulder. The fund sat secure in an account with 2 names on it, mine and his. Every dollar my mother left, restored as best I could manage, walled off the way she'd wanted, doing the one job she'd meant it to do. I'd kept my word to a dying woman. It was the only thing that had ever really mattered. I used to think keeping the peace meant keeping quiet. I'd had that exactly backwards. Some nights now, I sit on the porch and think about how close I came to losing him, to a silence I called loyalty. I won't make that mistake again. 6 months on, life had a different shape, and I liked it better. Marcus moved into his own small place a few blocks over. His idea, a good one. Strong enough now to live alone. Close enough to come by for Sunday dinner, which he did every week, still burning things. The house was calmer than it had been in years. No one sighing at a pill organizer. No low voices on the phone in the next room. No story being built about me behind my back. I handle my own money now. All of it. I check the accounts every Friday, sitting at the same kitchen table where I once read a balance that gutted me. Not out of fear, out of respect. For myself. For the work it takes to keep a thing honest. That was the lesson, I think, the one that cost me 9 years to learn. Trust isn't a gift you hand over once and forget. You don't sign the keys to your life away and call it love. Trust is something you keep earning, both of you, in the light, where it can be checked. I'd given Brenda blind faith and called it generosity. It wasn't. It was just an unlocked door, and eventually someone walked through it and took what they found. Raymond and I still talk. He comes to Sunday dinners sometimes, sits with Marcus, the 2 of them arguing about football. He never mentions Brenda. Neither do I. Some doors close gently and stay closed. I heard, secondhand, that she'd moved to another town, trying to start over. I hope she does. I mean that, without heat. But she doesn't get a place in this house anymore. Not in it, and not in my peace. That's not bitterness. That's a boundary. And I'd earned the right to draw it. She called one more time, almost a year to the day after the party. I almost didn't recognize the number. New area code. I answered without thinking. A reflex from another life. "Dylan." A pause. "It's me." I knew the voice. I jumped at it for 9 years. "Brenda, I've been doing a lot of thinking." She sounded different, quieter, maybe genuinely so. I couldn't tell anymore. About everything. The way it ended. "I think we should talk. Really talk. Maybe meet for coffee. I have things I want to say. A year ago, that opening would have hooked me. The hope in it, the pull to fix, to explain, to make peace. I felt none of it now. Just a clear, calm space where the pull used to be. I'm glad you're doing some thinking, I said, and I meant it without an ounce of edge. So, can we meet? No, Brenda. Not angry, not cold, just true. I wish you well. I do. I hope the new town is good to you. I hope you build something honest this time. I took a breath. But you don't get access to my life anymore. That part's closed. Silence on the line. Then, small. You really won't even... Take care of yourself, Brenda. I hung up gently. No slam. No last word to win. I just set the phone on the table and let it lie there, quiet, and I waited to feel the old guilt rise up, the certainty that I'd been too hard, that I should call back, soften it, make sure she was okay. It didn't come. What came instead was something I'd been chasing my whole adult life without knowing its name. The simple, steady peace of a man who finally knows what he's worth. It's a Sunday evening now. The kind that comes soft and gold at the end of a good week. Marcus is out on my porch, feet up on the rail, complaining that the steaks are taking too long. He's got weight back on his frame. His color's good. His heart, the doctors say, is the strongest it's been in years. I bring the plates out and sit beside him. On the small table between us, there's an old folder I keep meaning to file away properly and never do. My mother's will. The page that built a wall no in-law could climb. I keep it close, not because I need it anymore, because of what it cost her to write it and what it nearly cost me to ignore it. You good? Marcus asks, mouth full. Yeah, I say. And I am. I'm good. The sun goes down over a quiet street. Two brothers on a porch. A promise kept. My mother asked me to take care of my brother. I almost lost him because I trusted the wrong person with the keys to everything. I won't make that mistake again. Not with my money, not with my loyalty, not with my peace. Let me step out of the story one last time. If this reached you somewhere real, do me one favor. Comment the word boundaries below, so I know it found the right people. And if you've ever had to protect your family from someone who was supposed to love them, I've put more stories like this one in the description. Subscribe so the next one finds you too. Take care of the people who take care of you, and never apologize for the wall that keeps them safe. I'll see you in the next story.